Hi, I'm Elaine Brewster, and welcome to Aspects of Energy. This is a very, very special call today. A while ago, those of you who saw my flyer, my email flyer, this is the very first time that I have ever put a little cover, a picture of the cover of the book that I'm writing about my husband's cancer journey. And in that cancer journey, it was largely alternative. And so I wanted people to understand these things, because before 23 years ago, I didn't understand any of this natural stuff. I am one who said, balance, schmalance. I thought it was all silly. And now I realize that these cultures, Eastern cultures, who practice natural and holistic, they've been doing it for 1,000 years, whereas in our country, we're in the hundreds. And so they've really got something to look at. So I had asked Ted Aloisio if he would talk about his book, Blood Never Lies, and about alkalinity. And to our utter astonishment, Ted died 2.5 weeks ago. So I have asked his brother, Gerry, to represent the family, first of all, and just tell us about Ted, because we want to know more about him and we want to honor him today. And then after that, then I'll tell you some things that I've learned about alkalinity. And then Barb Richmond, who lives up north, she's going to tell us about alkalinity also. So Gerry, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for holding this, Elaine. And I just wanted to say a few things. Obviously, with my brother's passing, he couldn't be here. And, he was, as you know, he believed in the alternative medicine and lifestyle. He was an author of 4 books. Blood Work and Nikken was his life's work. He dedicated himself to helping people and wanted that message passed along, that there's always a better way to live life. He didn't do it for money. He really put other people's health ahead of his own. He was bigger than life. We're saddened to see him gone. Sorry. He left an impression on anyone who met him. Like, if obviously everyone on this call who's met him before knows everything about him. He was a family man. He was a father of 5 wonderful children that I'm happy to call my nieces and nephews. He was a wonderful and dedicated husband to Anna, unwavering love for her for 34 years. And for me, and he was my best friend, my brother. And I know everyone who's ever met him knows that the world is a much better place, given that he played a part in everyone's life. So thank you for holding this, and thank you for honoring his memory.
Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. I'm going to share my screen and do just this little, oh, whoops, there we go. Honoring Ted Aloisio, Alkalinity and Blood Never Lies. Father, brother, friend, microscopist, and author of Blood Never Lies and 3 other books, as Gerry said. As he said, married to Anna for 34 years, parents of 5 children, and in the obituary, they called their death legendary, said he brought laughter and joy into the lives of everyone he touched. He was positive, he was a peacemaker, and the voice of reason. He was a really, really lovely man. But we still have his legacy. So that's what we want to tell about a little today. He wrote this book, Blood Never Lies, in 2004. And it was the second way that I learned about alkalinity. The first way I learned was from Korean Sung Hwang, who wrote Reverse Aging, a classic book. His premise is the process of aging is the accumulation of non-disposed waste products, which are acidic. And in his book, he's the one who said on page 22, all kinds of drinks are very acidic, especially colas. In order to neutralize a glass of cola, it takes about 32 glasses of high pH alkaline water. Wow. And notice he wasn't saying colas or diet colas. No, he's just saying, you know, this is a cola is incredibly acidic for the body, and it needs alkaline water in order to neutralize that. So Barb Richmond is going to talk to us later about that. Then after learning this, then I read Blood Never Lies. Now, Ted was a microscopist, a nutritional microscopist, and that's a little bit different than regular blood work. So here's a picture of just a regular blood smear. They use a fixative liquid that stabilizes it. So the benefit of regular blood slides is that they're always the same. You can look at it a month from now and it's going to look exactly how it got stabilized, but it's dead. And they use a regular microscope. What Ted did was he used a different system, and the blood was still living. It was still moving around there. And people would look at it and they could see their white blood cell, which is about twice as big as a regular blood cell, and they could see it in there gobbling up stuff, because that's what white blood cells are supposed to do, right? And it made them want to eat and change their diet. Now here's just two pictures. The one on the left is called rouleau, which is French for agglomerated or stacked. And you can see when they're stacked like pancakes, they can't get all the nutrients. There might be some nutrients floating around in the plasma, but it can't get into them because they're smushed together. In the second slide, you can see the red blood cells are all about the same size. They're all nice and plumpy. They're just kind of bouncing around like little gentle bumper cars. And they're able to get nutrients 360 degrees all the way around them. And interestingly, whenever Ted gave someone PiMag water, which is from the company Nikken, it's a special water. They use Pi water in Korea and Japan. Nikken is the only company that uses this special water in America. Anyway, within 1 minute, it would change to this nice, plumpy, round, lovely. So like I say, people would look at ways to eat. Now, these are some of the chapter headings in Ted's book. What is microscopy? Live blood observations, poor soils, essential nutrients, the acid alkaline balance. That's what we're talking about today. The power of water attracted to magnets. So this book is more a principles, principles related book. And this book that I'm showing on the cover there is by another Ted, Dr. Theodore Baruti, and his actually has recipes, and his has a whole listing of foods. Some good alkaline foods are asparagus, barley grass, parsley, all kinds of seaweed, fresh lemon in water, watermelon. In Ted's book, he tells us about pH and starts telling us about the importance of it. And here is the pH scale. So on the left, or my left anyway, is the red is acidic, very acidic. Green is neutral, that would be water. And the purple one is very alkaline. Now, he explains in his book, this is not like orange is 1, plus 2 is 3, plus 1 no, this isn't that kind of scale. This is called a logarithmic scale. The only other scale that I'm aware of that's like this is an earthquake scale. So that means if you look down on the red, 0 is 10 times more acidic than number 1. That means 0 is 100 times more acidic than 2. That would mean that 0 is, have we got the math? 1,000 times more acidic than 3. That starts giving us a real feel for acidity in the body and what the body can handle. Ted said, a pH of 1 is almost pure acid, and a substance with a pH of 1 can make a hole in solid steel. Wow. Now here's a picture of just some foods and just some things. So battery acid is down there on 0 in red. And next to it is stomach acid. The stomach has the most acidic fluid in the body, but the stomach is lined. It has a special lining and it wants to be acidic. So we actually do ourselves a disservice when we take antacids and things, Rolaids and Tums and stuff, because we're stopping the stomach from doing what it's supposed to do. Now, this is a topic for another time, but just in passing, there's a valve called the pyloric valve that shuts off the stomach from the small intestine, the beginning of the small intestine. The small intestine does not have the lining that the stomach has, so it can't handle all of the acid and the digestion. And so that pyloric valve will not open unless enough water is in the system to be able to flush it and to be able to mix with it so that it's not so acidic. So when people don't have enough water, where does all that go? Yeah, and that's called heartburn. So instead of taking things for heartburn, perhaps what we should be doing is having more water. When we're talking about substances, Ted lists in his book, using a really cute Old Testament metaphor, 4 substances which he does not even call foods. He calls them the 4 horsemen of the nutritional apocalypse. And he says these 4 substances almost equate to poisons. Well, that's what I said. I don't know that he said that. Sugar is very bad for us. Carbonated beverages, trans fats, white flour. And I encourage everybody to get this book and read it and the other books he's written. He's very clear and it's just transformative. So down here again on this pH scale, notice in the middle is water, is neutral. High alkaline water, as Song Huang says, would be even better. But the blood, it really is an 8. The blood is supposed to stay at about 7.4. And I'm going to tell you my story of how we found out how important that was for the blood to stay. And this is the story of Nicodemus. Nicodemus is not my son. Nicodemus is that cute sea green iguana that he's holding. He played with him all the time. He had him for about a year. He's on his head. We're families sitting there reading scriptures, and Nicodemus is sitting there part of the scripture reading. And after having him about a year, you know how iguanas kind of stand themselves up proudly and they look over their domain? Well, Nicodemus wasn't doing that. He was just splayed out and he would never stand up anymore. And Aaron was really concerned. So even at his tender young age, he shelled out $50 and we took him to the vet. The vet said, "What have you been feeding him?" And Aaron said, "Well, a lot of head lettuce, just what we eat as a family." The vet said, "Green death." And I said, "Why do you call it that?" And he said, "There's not enough calcium in head lettuce." He has been leaching from his bones to put calcium or to make the bloodstream be at the pH that it needed to be. In essence, his bones dissolved because we weren't giving him enough calcium that his bloodstream needed. And before Aaron got back the next day, Nicodemus was dead. I felt terrible, and I still do. Here was this little creature in our house that we were supposed to be taking care of, that we were responsible for, and we let him die. I know that we didn't know, but life is to be learned from. And what I learned from that is that we need more calcium in our diets so that the body, the bloodstream, which has to stay right in the middle, it cannot get too far out of kilter or we will die. It's one of the most particular things in the body. And if we don't give it enough calcium with romaine lettuce and kale and spinach and things like that, it's going to go for our bones. Now, I don't think we'll dissolve, but have you heard of osteopenia and osteoporosis? Sure we have. And so having an alkaline diet and having alkaline water go a long, long way to building up the body and to kind of neutralizing a lot of the acidity that we face from electromagnetic frequencies that are around us, to pollution that's around us, to the American diet. So I would really love Barb Richmond to tell us anything that she would like to about Nikken Alkaline PiMag Water and stories that she's had about it. Barb?
Thanks for having me on, Elaine. I have done a great many water demonstrations, tap water and 13 different brands of bottled water. And each of the 13 brands of bottled water were acidic. I was able to make them alkaline by using just my sport bottle and a few drops of our Pi water from the sport bottle. When I was finished, I took all the glasses that were now alkaline water, put them in a clear pitcher, clear glass pitcher, and added a capful, just a capful of 7-Up or Sprite because they were also clear. And instantaneously, the alkaline water became acidic. Now, when our internal system is acidic, our body tries to compensate. It tries to reduce the acidity. And one of the ways of reducing the acidity is to leach minerals from our organs and from our bones. That's a factor that contributes to osteoporosis. Now, my husband and I owned and operated a bed and breakfast, and we used to have Ted come up 1 day a month. Then we had to increase it to 2 days a month. Then we had to increase it to 3 days a month. And he would be booked from 9 in the morning till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, every 20 to 30 minutes, doing live cell microscopy on our guests. When they came in, he knew nothing about them. He didn't know if they were taking any nutritional products from the drugstore, from the big box stores, or the Nikken nutritionals. But as soon as he did the microscopy test, he would turn to them and say, "You're taking Nikken nutritionals." And they would be blown away. When he would take the blood test, he would project it onto a television screen. And people taking the Nikken nutritionals and drinking the Pi water, their cells were free flowing, no clumping whatsoever. You rarely saw white blood cells. You didn't see free radicals. But somebody that was taking nutritional from supposedly a real good quality nutritional from the drugstore or the big box stores, and Ted was dead set against those. And he could tell some brands that people were taking just from the look of their blood. You'd pick up on white blood cells in the sample. You'd see free radicals in the sample. But ahead of time, he didn't know what the people were taking until he actually did their blood test. And then he would ask them some questions. He never recommended the Nikken nutritionals. But if he had a sample that was really clumped, the first thing he would do was he would ask me to give them a glass of water. And of course, it was always Pi water. And immediately, within 30 seconds to a minute, he was able to get a better sample. And it was so visual that you couldn't deny the difference. People were seeing their blood on the screen, the before and the after. Ted actually was booked to come to do, he came here where I'm living now 2 years ago, and he was booked to come back again in May. And I had an 89-year-old gentleman call me in January. Actually, he was 88 at the time, and asked for Ted's contact information because he wanted to call him and discuss a particular concern that he had. The first time I met Ted, we were introduced to him. We were asked to be guest speakers at a wellness preview in Kingston. And the treat for us was to meet Ted and have our blood tested. As soon as Wayne and I had and we didn't know what to expect. So we'd had our blood done. And then when it was, and Wayne and I are saying to each other, I wonder what we're going to find out. I wonder if we're going to be sent to the hospital. What are we going to be told? Ted turned to us and he said, you both must be taking the Nikken nutritionals. And we, of course, said we did. Ted used to carry, and I'm going to show you a bag of almonds just as an example. Can you see that? He used to carry a little Ziploc bag around with him, and he called them potty pellets. He stopped doing that and just took pictures after a while, but a friend of his was in the septic tank pumping business. And in the bottom of the septic tanks were all these pills, and you could read the labels on them. You could read what pills they were, what dosage they were. So people were taking these in good faith, thinking they were doing the right thing for their bodies, but they were going right through the body and into the sewer or into the septic tank, and they were getting no benefit from them whatsoever. It was a very dramatic example of what people were literally doing to their systems. Ted told me that his children's school teacher used to call him in quite often and say, you know, your children are the only ones that never miss a day of school. Why is that? Ted said, I told the teacher that every day they get jade greenzymes. We all take jade greens on a daily basis. You can survive on jade greens and water alone if you're drinking the right water and taking the right jade greens. He told me the story that the first time his son was allowed to go for a sleepover, he came running home, and the way Ted told it, he said, Dad, they didn't serve green tuna. Their tuna isn't green. And Ted said he used to always put jade greens in the children's lunches for school, whether it was egg salad, tuna salad, whatever. Jade greens always went into their lunches. And there was his son eating lunch at somebody else's house for the first time, and he didn't recognize the tuna salad. So I've always remembered Ted telling me that story. He was a very gracious man. I never, in all the years I knew him, heard him complain. He never did. Never complained. Always had the time to listen to the people that he was testing, answer their questions. He hesitated to recommend any particular product. But if somebody happened to be within earshot when he was talking to somebody who was taking the Nikken nutritionals, he didn't tell them to leave. So quite a few people, hearing how pure, organic, and no side effects the Nikken nutritionals were, he knew how good they were for our system and how much they build our system up and without side effects. I have read Ted's book a number of times. In fact, I've got 2 of his books. And I always held him in very high esteem. So when I heard of his passing on the 2nd of March, I couldn't believe it. Just, it didn't sink in. So I'm very happy that we're here today, paying tribute to a gentleman, a scholar, a person who cared so much about the health of other people, that he showed us a way to share ways and means of contributing health and wellness to anybody that we meet. If they reject it, that's up to them. If they accept it, wonderful. However, if they reject it, we've planted a seed. And in many cases, I've had people that weren't interested at the time come back to me some months, even a couple of people years later, relaying what Ted had told them and asked then if we could help them. So what he taught stuck with people because he did it in such a nice, straightforward way. Nobody felt that they were being put down for what they were doing, but they were being shown a better way to improve their health. So Gerry, I'm terribly sorry about your loss. Please express my condolences to the family.
Thank you.
Ted will be a friend that I truly will miss and held in extremely high esteem. And I consider myself to be one of many people that had the privilege to have met him and called him friend.
Thank you, Barb. And isn't that wonderful that through the work that he did and through his books, that his legacy can still live on, you know, and through his children and then grandchildren when they come. Giselle or Bill, did you have a thought or a question?
Yes, I do. Zell and Bill are from Winnipeg. And Ted, we've been Nikken users since 2006, and soon after becoming Nikken users and consultants, we've certainly got a chance to meet Ted and work with Ted, and it was quite enjoyable. Ted had a great appreciation for, well, he recognized the difference between all companies and the value that they had, and especially Nikken. He was an all-around user of the Nikken components, sleep, water, air, you name it. He was there. But he used to come through the States and up through, make his loop through Minnesota, North Dakota, and then up through Manitoba a couple times a year. And then he couldn't get in through as easy through the States. And but he used to come to Manitoba at least once or twice a year. And it was always so enjoyable to work with him. Now, being Nikken users, we weren't still always perfect, but Ted was able to find out he recognized just what was going on in our individual bodies, and come up with a solution. And not only a solution, but if you had other issues or things that were creeping on, he would be more than pleased to talk with us anytime. In fact, I think it was near the end of the year, I had a little issue. I think I can't remember myself or somebody else, and texted Ted, and I got something back with him pretty quickly. So not only did he work with us in his sessions, but we had numerous chances, and we went out for dinner with him and picked his brain and just enjoyed him socially. And it was just a hoot. We're going to miss Ted quite immensely. We were quite shocked. And so to the Aloisio family, you know, it's and to the Nikken family, we are deeply saddened. And I don't know how we're going to replace them, because there's others out there that do some of the same work, but Ted had that knack, and he found it fast, and he didn't beat around the bush. And it was just amazing. So we have to leave right now. We have another commitment right here at 3:30, but I'm glad I was able to be able to say something to our Nikken family, and also to Ted's family. And so we're certainly appreciative that Elaine, that you continued this session with Ted. We were certainly looking forward to listening to him today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. So Ted, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Giselle.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add or question or? or say. Here are two of the things that Barb was talking about. Can you see that? That's the jade green zymes in this container. It's a barley powder. Ooh, just smell that. Can you smell that? Ah, it smells so fresh. It purifies the blood. If you had this in water, you could live. Wouldn't be very fun, but you could. And then
I can make a point about that too, Elaine.
go ahead.
A gentleman that a client of ours was about to lose a third of his tongue because of a nasty lesion. Worst case scenario, he might have to learn sign language, and best case scenario, he was going to have extensive speech therapy. And we started him on the pie water and the jade greens, told him to have a teaspoon of the jade greens every day and to drink half his body weight in the pie water every day. His wife had 2 lesions on her cheek, and the surgeon elected to attend to this gentleman's tongue first and then to excise her lesions afterward. 3 weeks later, he went to the surgeon for his blood work and preoperative workup. And the surgeon said, "I don't know what you're doing, Jack, but keep it up. We're going to cancel your surgery." Now, he hated the taste of the jade greens. No way was he going to take it in water or juice. So he mixed it in his peanut butter and put it on his toast. She, on the other hand, wanted to support him in what we had recommended for him. She would follow the same regimen. She would put her jade greens in juice or water. She didn't mind the taste. That gentleman passed away in June of last year at the ripe old age of 89 with tongue still intact, and she never had to have her lesions excised. Now, we tested their water that they were drinking, and we thought that we had made a mistake. We'd never seen such acidic water. So we took it into a pool and spa place and asked them to test it. We didn't tell them the source. They came out and said to us, if this is from a hot tub or a pool, drain your pipes immediately or they're just going to dissolve. We've never, ever seen such acidic water. And it was well water and they were drinking it. 3 weeks on the pie water and his surgery was canceled and she didn't require it. Dramatic. It just shows what the pie water can do in neutralizing the extreme acidity internally. You know, when you're acidic internally, it's the right environment for any disease to set up housekeeping. Why would we want that to happen? So let's make it as difficult as possible for anything to get a foothold in our internal system and create health challenges for us. But Ted said, jade greens and water, you could survive if you had no other source of food.
Wow.
Yes.
Especially if it was Nikken water that had some.
Exactly, because it's got essential minerals in it and it has so much value and it's immediately absorbed, which is key.
Right,
Yeah.
which he showed by his slides.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, every single one of you. This has been a delight to share some time with you today. And just a real delight to remember Ted and to have the family on. Thank you. I hope you'll be able to come back next week. Every week we talk about a different aspect of energy, something to raise our energy. And next week it's going to be humor by, believe it or not, West Virginia's winner of the Biggest Liars contest. So it's
It'll be fun.
it's going to be very fun. All right. So everybody, I'm starting to see a few people out there without masks on, but even if you have masks on, work your eyes overly much and say hello to people because it will raise their energy and it will raise yours. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank you,
Thanks
Elaine.
for honoring Ted, Elaine.
Mhm.
Thanks, Elaine. This was wonderful.
Thanks.